being happy making $85,000 a year in annual rent like 2018 or 19, and now I'm making over 100 grand every month. So it's one thing to say I have $1 million in equity. It's a whole different thing to say I have over $1 million plus in annual rent.
Right.
And that's what I mean by it takes time to be great. You can't.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. So I have my man, KR, back on the show. And so let me give you, for those of y'all are new, let me give you a little background about KR. So KR is the co-founder of KAYJAY Consulting. He is a stellar example of a young professional who has benefited from working on Wall Street and building a multi-million-dollar real estate investment company with currently over 100 rental units from scratch. Okay. And for as long as he can remember, KR, a native Philadelphia, and go Philly, because as y'all know, so am I, and wanted to go to college, but being the first to go among parents, siblings, and friends meant he had many obstacles to overcome. KR is a real estate investor who has assembled a team of professionals to assist the initial identification, acquisition, and ongoing management of target properties. In addition, he's a licensed real estate salesperson, a member of the Homeowners Association. He just want to skip to this. He held positions at Goldman Sachs. So he was in what I call the belly of the beast. And no offense. And Ciro's Capital Management, Raptor Capital Management, Truist Securities. He is a board member of Philadelphia Young Playwrights, Great Young Society organization. And he's also been nominated for the 40 Under 40 Leadership Awards program. And he has a bachelor's in history from Bowdoin and an MBA from the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College. KR, so I had to let them know who we are talking to. Welcome back to the Practical Wealth Show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. One of my favorite podcast hosts out there, dropping knowledge, always out there. So I'm excited to just have this opportunity to be on your platform again and share my story and share my thoughts.
Yeah. So I like being around smart people. Okay. And so it was funny because we were both speaking at an event up in Newark. What was that? July, right? July of.
Yes.
This year. This year. Like this is all September as we record this. So a couple months ago. And so we were sitting next to each other. So it's funny hanging out with him because KR will he's always making comments about this. Oh, that's over their head. Oh, oh, that's bullshit. It's funny.
Yes.
In a good way. But I like people that get to the point because I know he knows what he's talking about. So it's funny to hear his perspective, right? And it was on developing. So it was a really nice conference. But one of the things that we talked about that when we were just talking on the side and in the breaks, that is everybody wants to get LLCs and buy properties in LLCs. And one of the things that you said, I want you to pick up on this, is that, and I'd heard this before, but I wanted to have a conversation about it, is that they could, if they do that, they're shooting themselves in the foot because they're cutting off an opportunity to get more subsidized loans. You remember that conversation? That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, in many respects, I wouldn't use the word subsidized. I would use the word mortgages with better terms.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So more beneficial, more friendly to first-time investors. So when you first start out, a lot of people will tell you, hey, you got to get an LLC in order to buy your first rental property. That is not necessarily true.
Okay.
The number one thing when you first start out is your focus on the cash flows, and you're also focused on what you have. So you may not have a large down payment. Typically, if you're getting a rental property in the LLC, you have to put 20% down. If you get it in your personal name, there are multiple programs and you have flexibility in terms of the down payment. If you're a veteran, it could be 0% down. If you're a doctor, medical doctor, It could be 0% down. A lawyer, it could actually be 3% down and be considered conventional. It could be an FHA loan at 3.5%. You could put down 15, 20, 25%. So you get so much flexibility putting the mortgage in your personal name that you don't have to come up with that big down payment like if you're doing an LLC. But besides that, also typically if it's a loan mortgage in your personal name, you could actually get a 30-year fixed mortgage where the interest rate is the same throughout the 30 years. Typically with an LLC, you're going to get a 5-year fix. So that means after 5 years, you have to refinance that mortgage and get a new mortgage, meaning your rate can change. What's also must be noted is that if you get it in your personal name, your interest rate is lower than it is in a business because business is considered more risky. So that's another benefit. Also, your annual insurance and premium. Your annual insurance premium is lower if it's in your personal name versus if it's in the LLC. The other thing people overlook, the taxes. So when you do it in your personal name, you file one form for your taxes, your tax returns. If you have an LLC, you will file a form for your LLC and for your personal name, meaning that you're going to have to pay your tax accountant more money. Another thing people don't understand is that if you get it in your personal name, you will not have to pay an annual fee. So some states require an annual LLC fee that you have to pay. So what we're most concerned about is our cash flows. Another thing people don't realize is that the amortization. So if you get in your personal name, the mortgage can be based off of 30 years. You want to spread it out because your payments will be smaller. If you get in the LLC, typically the mortgage is based off of 20 years or 25 years, the monthly payments. So I mention these things because it's so important. Cash flow is king in the beginning and you have limited resources. So why start somewhere you can? So if you bought a property for $100,000 and you were able to get into a program, it could be a duplex, triplex, fourplex, you're able to get into a program where you put 0% down, that's a little money out your pocket, or 3.5% down, that's $3,500. If it was the LLC in the LLC name, you got to put $20,000 down. That is a big gap. That's $16,500 difference that you would have to come up with. So another thing people would say is, KR, that all sounds jazzy, but what about the risk? How do I protect myself? I tell people when I look out the window and I see it's about to rain, I don't only put my raincoat on, I also get my umbrella. And so your raincoat is very similar to getting a regular insurance on the house. And then you're going to get an umbrella insurance policy. So say you bought the house for $100,000. You get an insurance policy for $120,000. Then you're going to get an umbrella policy for $1 million and you'll pay an extra $50, $60 every month. So that's how you can protect yourself. And I tell people, if you really want to learn how to get started, you have to cash your bucket where you are, be very practical and realistic about what you can do to get into the game. It's nice to say, oh, I can do the LLC. I can come up with all these fancy numbers. I think that's very difficult.
I think people will say to me, well, I opened up an LLC like they did something, right? I started a business, but it's just it doesn't save on taxes, a regular solo member. And
that's it's
just right. See, the thing is,
nothing.
It doesn't mean anything. And it's a limited liability. First, you say corporation's company, right? But I just interviewed this attorney who went over asset protection and trust. He says, listen, it's limited liability. And when you're starting out, and I always tell people this also, just like you said, your first, I like that. I'm stealing that analogy, by the way, with you go outside with the raincoat thing. And, but your first line of defense is insurance. It's not an entity, right? Because the insurance companies, lawyers will go to work for you. One of the things, KR, that we teach is in our principles-based planning is maximum protection, right? So I go over their auto, because you got to have maximum coverage on your auto to qualify for liability, right? To qualify for the umbrella coverage, you have to have like 100, 300, 100,000 property damage. I recommend you get 100, 300 of uninsured motors. That's your first line of defense. And now you can get an umbrella, right? And that's powerful because now let me ask you this, because this is a misconception. So when you're saying they could vary their down payments, are you talking about house hacking? Does it have to be owner occupied?
No, it doesn't. That's the other thing people don't understand. When people think you need to get an LLC in order to buy a rental property that you're going to rent out, that you don't live in. No, you actually can get it in your personal name, up to 10 properties, 10 mortgages in your personal name that you do not live in. If it is a single family with just one unit, 3-bedroom, bath, something like that, you can put down as low as 15% because it's in your personal name. You can go out and get 10 of those single families. Or if you're going to do a duplex or a triplex or fourplex, depending on the lender, they're going to say put 25% down to 30% down. And you do not have to live in either of these properties.
Wow, that's a revelation. I didn't know that. I know residential is up to 4 units. That's a lot of people don't understand. Like a quad is still considered residential. So you can, you could, if you're going to live there, you could really go as low as 3.5% down, right? And just
well, if you're a VA or if you are a doctor, medical doctor or a lawyer, you can go down to 0%, put 0% down. Or they have some programs conventional that you can put down as low as 3%.
Why
and you will not have to pay a PMI.
Wow. What? That's major. Okay. And why are all these misconceptions floating around, do you think?
Well, I think part of it is you'll find that a lot of people that are like the gurus, they're not only offering real estate tips, they're also offering like their business services, saying, let me help you set up your LLC. And it wouldn't make sense. I can't help my left hand if my right hand talks about real estate. My left hand wants me to help you set up your LLC and probably do your bookkeeping. So I'm trying to get the bang for my buck, trying to get every dollar you have, as much as your wallet. So therefore the misinformation is out there because it's not sexy to tell people do the basic stuff. It's not sexy to tell people, hey, look, just walk straight. If you do what's necessary, then you do what's possible. You find yourself doing the impossible. People want you to jump to the impossible. So you'll hear a lot of people talking about success like speed. I think success dislikes speed. And so people are looking for shortcuts, and therefore that's how they're getting trapped up. For me, I think if you just slow down, understand the rules, how you used to only be able to get 4 properties in your personal name prior to the Great Recession. After the Great Recession in 2009, the government decided to open it up to 10 houses in your personal name. So you and your wife or you and your husband can get 20 mortgages and be able to rent that out. So that could be 20 times 4, which is 80 rental units, because the government wanted to stimulate the housing market.
Okay.
So why wouldn't we take advantage of these programs?
Yeah, if they're crazy to give you 30-year fixed terms, okay, you should take it. Like you should start there at a lower interest rate.
And what's so funny is an LLC, if an LLC protected you so much, why would they make you still get insurance on the property? They would just say get it under an LLC, but afterwards they still say you got to get insurance because it's limited. So therefore, it's so important that you understand that insurance at the end of the day is definitely going to is what's going to come out determining if it's going to protect you. Not just running around saying, oh, I got to get an LLC because everybody told me that's the cool thing to do. Now, some people will want to get the LLC because when you do get it in your personal name, you do have to own the property for 6 months before you can cash out.
Okay.
If it's in your personal name. But I'm willing to slow down in order to take advantage of these programs. So you actually could get a mortgage in your personal name for 1 rental, and you could do an LLC if you're that impatient. A lot of people are impatient. So they'll say, I'll pay the extra cost, the higher cost, because I want to get my money out within 40 days or 60 days or 90 days. But I'm like 3 months, 6 months, that's not going to kill me. I think things done well are done soon enough. So it takes time to build a great business.
Yes. I always say investing is not about buying something. It's about becoming, right? Something. And
agree.
You know what I mean? And there's no like shortcut to success. You have to, everybody wants to shortcut that. We were talking about this before because everybody wants to jump right to, step 5, and skip 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
And I think it hurts them. A lot of times, Carol, when I go to events, like we were talking, I spoke at 2 real estate events this weekend. And I went to one on tax lien. So all these people are there to hit a home run, right? In their finances. But when I look at them, they don't save. They're not properly insured. They don't have enough liquidity, and for, you want liquidity for good stuff and bad stuff, right? Because if you have capital, opportunities will find you. And because if you mess with, like COVID showed that, okay, you know, the government can make it legal for your tenants not to pay you.
Not to pay rent. Exactly.
So you need liquidity, right? Savings, right? And so that you can do, but, and also for opportunity, because, all right, your fellow landlord business owner didn't have it. So now you might be able to pick up his property on the cheap. So you got to be able to pivot, you know, what that Chinese symbol for chaos is opportunity, and, you know, and chaos on the other side. So you got to be ready. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's exactly the thing. Like the other foolishness out there is cash is trash. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yes.
If you have no cash, you have no access to cash, you can't take advantage of other opportunities, or you can't be prepared for emergencies. So if you walk around with only $50 in your bank account, you're going to be effed up. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Me too. You know, and they think, well, you know, I got to keep it moving. Yes, but you know, if Apple is sitting on what
billions
in cash,
just like Bill Gates and just like Warren Buffett, all these people are sitting on billions in cash,
and they have debt. They ain't trying to get out of debt either, are they?
Yeah. It's because they know that certain opportunities will come, but they understand the first thing about investing, which I believe is your return of investment. But you also got to make sure that you planning for worst case scenarios.
Yes.
You're hoping for the best, but you're planning for the worst case scenarios because they actually happen. Like I had bought like a triplex maybe a few weeks ago for $140,000 because I had $140,000 sitting in my bank account. The people that think cash is trash, they probably have $5 in their bank account. And so therefore they wouldn't be able to take advantage of an opportunity like that because they've been miseducated and misguided.
Yes. And or like, when people like put all the money, leaving all the money in the house, the rate of, we talked about this before, the rate of return on equity is 0, right?
Yes.
Right. And so, and you have to qualify to get it. See, people think it's like money in the bank. You have to qualify to get it. And you might not qualify that week or whatever, you know.
And some people, they're going around talking about, I don't like any debt. I want all my properties free and clear. That's nice one day. But what about if an opportunity comes up? Or what about if people stop paying rent? You have no access to the money you just mentioned.
Yes. Tell them, go back to your disagreement with success loves money loves speed. Break that down a little bit more.
Yeah, I can break that down. So what I like a lot of people don't realize, for example, even my career. So I started with one rental unit in 2009. By 2018, I had 9 rental units. By 2019, I had 35 rental units. By 2020, I had 105. So I bought 70 rental units during the pandemic. And the only way I was able to do that is first I had to get that intellectual capital. I had to understand, how do you buy a house? How do you rehab a house? How do you manage a property? How do you select a tenant? How do you refinance? Understand all those different things in the beginning. That was the short-term goal. And then the medium-term goal was I had to put together the team. Right. And so I had to figure out, after I interact with all these different players, who is going to be my title company? Who's going to be my real estate broker? Who's going to be my mortgage broker? Who's going to be my lender? Who's going to be my real estate agent? All these different things. Who's going to do my property management? Who's going to be my handyman? Who's going to be my contractor? Because as you think about your long-term goal, you have to put in place the building blocks to get larger. So I used to buy single families. I got the 9 single families. And then I start buying apartment buildings. So now I own a 24-unit apartment building, a 14-unit apartment building with a restaurant, two 12-unit apartment buildings, a 9-unit apartment building, 2 6-units, a 5-unit, and a couple of triplexes and duplexes and single families. But I had to start building the blocks. And I went from being happy making $85,000 a year in annual rent, like 2018 or 19, and now I'm making over $100,000 every month. So it's one thing to say I have $1 million in equity. It's a whole different thing to say I have over $1 million plus in annual rent. Right. And that's what I mean by it takes time to be great. It's not something you can get overnight. And if you look at any of the great companies, whether it's Facebook or Apple or Microsoft, you'll notice that those companies, it took time to build those companies. It's not like you just snap your finger and you win the lottery. It's just like if you wanted to become Tom Brady, you don't become that overnight. It takes time. You got to put time in to be great.
That's perfect. I'm gonna figure I can pull that out. It takes time to be great. Okay. I love
Exactly.
that is a quote. I'm gonna put that on something. That's it takes time to be great. And now you can be impatient, you can speed it up if you're willing to work harder and faster with more focus, but you still have to work harder. You got to take your lumps. You've got to, get coaching. You can maybe
Think about it this way.
yeah.
You really can't, a great company can't really speed it up. And
Right.
think
Okay.
about it like football. You can only win one Super Bowl a year. You can't get 5 until you put the 5 years in. So I
Okay.
tell
All
people,
right.
slow
Okay.
down. A lot of people say, oh, maybe I could do faster. No, really, you're not necessarily that you're building a super successful company. What you're actually doing is you're partnering with someone else that may have more experience,
Right.
that they help build a successful company. You're on the coattails. But if you're organically saying that you're building this thing from scratch, it takes time to catch fire. That's why we don't normally have these companies get built. Even Snapchat, they come out, but they don't do an IPO that fast because they're building. That's why we have venture capital companies, that early stage companies, seed investors, and then you have the private equity investors for mature companies that want to go public or want to be better positioned. So even if we tell our brains that we can go much faster by ourselves, but even ourselves, we're still limited in order to build a successful, sustainable business. It may be good that you have 1 year, you got $100,000 in revenue, but that's not sustainable because you don't have the building blocks in place. You don't have the experience in place. So the lenders don't really trust you that well. So it's very, very different. Even if you're doing the drug business, it takes time. You're not going to become the king of New York with your drug business because you pushing a few bags. It's going to take time to put the infrastructure and the business in place. So therefore it can grow.
Right. Not that we're saying y'all need to go out and sell drugs. All right.
No, I'm just saying
But
every
is that,
business
but
you
you know, it's
think
funny. I
about.
used to talk to young guys. We were in the bar business, right? And they was like, Kurt, yo, man, oh, I like what you do, man, because you legit, right? And I would break down to them what they're doing. You could do it in a legit thing. You have the skills, right? And which they
Yeah.
didn't see. And so because we're having beer, so I'm like Big Brother Curtis, right? I think I'm like
No, that makes
30,
sense.
early 30s, and we're just breaking down. And so I could, what you got, one of the skills you got to have is being able to meet people at different levels.
Absolutely.
I got a question. So I have 2 questions. So I hear this a lot. We hadn't talked about this, but I just want to kind of get your feeling on it. So people will say, I'll ask them what their goals are. I was at this conference. What are your goals? I want generational wealth. I want multiple streams of income, and I want passive income. And I don't like those statements, right? Because I think they're jumping to the end when they say that. Like
No, your goals I always say break them into 3: short term, medium term, and long term. And then there should be a thread that ties all 3 of them together. So while you're working on your short term, that should be helping prepare you for your medium term and your long term goal. When you get into the medium, then that should be preparing you for the long term one. They all have to be tied. What a lot of people do is they just focus, like what you said, on the long term, and they forget the short term. So in the short term, I'm just trying to understand the fundamental basics of real estate. The medium term is I'm trying to put together a team so I can make this repeatable and I can make this scalable. And then in the long term, we start to see the fruits of our labor. But if we don't take the time to understand the business, and then we don't understand we don't build the business, then you'll never be able to go to the highest level,
to
which
legacy,
is when
yeah.
it becomes
Yeah.
legacy, and it becomes generational wealth, and it becomes scalable.
Perfect. And so let me ask you this. What would you say, coming from Wall Street? Now, my show is Wealth Outside of Wall Street, but I love the fact, because I was just a securities business, so I still have a understanding of that. But you were like doing, in the game, and seeing how money's made from the highest level. How has that helped you as a person that, because like buying apartment buildings and seeing the world and running your numbers, from your past world, how's that helped you as a real estate investor?
So what I think that Wall Street, what really helped me is the training. So it helps you think about things in terms of frameworks, in terms of teams, in terms of delegation, in terms of management. So what we tend to do, a lot of us, is we'll just buy something really fast. We didn't really analyze the situation, what the pros and cons, what went wrong, How can I have done this much better? And so what I learned on Wall Street is they always sit back and say, all right, let's look at this from the top down and also from the bottom up. Let's also see what we did wrong, what we did right, how we could add more value. How are all the stakeholders being affected? And that means your entire team, including yourself and your community. How are you benefiting from this situation? And then what they do is they try to make you think objectively and understand that the riches are in the niches. So working on Wall Street, they like for people to have a deep understanding. So rather than going 100 yards wide, I'd rather you go 100 yards deeper into something where you become the domain expert. And then what's going to happen is you're focused on building like that track record, those relationships, and then you'll have the reputation precede you. So all of those companies, the smaller companies, were lacking track records. They were lacking the reputation. They were lacking the relationships. And so we will take them public and we will learn from them. But the ones that have been around that have pretty much been through and tested, management tested through hard times, those are the ones you can learn from, because you're trying to say, all right, I want to start something fresh and new. How do I build a great company? And so that you spend all your time trying to figure that out using Excel, using presentation skills, using soft skills, using hard skills, which a lot of entrepreneurs probably what they lack is that they're just going off of raw talent.
Right.
So they may be really good like Michael Vick. They're all over the place. They're doing well. They're doing this. They're with the wrong crowds. Mess up your career. You go to jail. You come back. You're showing signs of promise, but you have never gotten a part of a seasoned team. So what we do at KAYJAY Consulting, we say, if you want to be a winning coach, join a winning team. You want to be an outstanding tennis player, join an outstanding team. So what I decide is I focus all my energy on building the best team and surrounding myself with people who have skill sets that complement mine and also that are willing to help me grow. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs lack that.
Yes. It's funny when I was, and then I'm going to set you, I want you to tell them how to follow you or see what you're doing. I remember when I was younger, I was with a company that was a subsidiary of what became Citigroup, right? So I used to follow Sandy Weil, Jamie Dimon, like when Jamie Dimon was his assistant coming out of Fireman's Fund. It was a little before my time, but I remember when Sandy took commercial credit public, bought Primerica, and he would buy. So then I didn't get it completely, but the growth, like a lot of times, like all they're doing, I realize, is like when people go and they're looking at properties, they were doing the exact same work. They were just looking at businesses. They would bring deals and they would analyze them. And then what Sandy would do is he would buy, whatever bigger company is more famous, he would buy it and then take the name. So it went from Primerica to Travelers, but it was Travelers Group, and then went from City Street to City Group. And I had a guy who was one of their companies just broke it down. He says, listen, Sandy, he says, you know, your best investment is in your business. It's not sending it away from your business, right? And he would say stuff like, so you know how to control it. You need to be liquid. You need to, like, we had a sales company. You could run contests in your business and generate more revenue by investing. So we would do stuff like, you know, when the multi-units came out, I'd run a contest and get our reps going for that. And so that was a way to, all right, get this $500 investment, but it generated, you know, $5,000 of new revenue. And it helped me start to think, you know, I'm like 26-ish, like a businessman, more of a businessman around that stuff and studying them. All right, how can I do what they're doing? And so you know, you gotta, you know, success leaves clues. And I think you have to look around and who's winning? Right. And how can I win? How can I copy that within my little business? You know, and I do that constantly. And
I agree.
Yeah. So tell them, KR, I appreciate your time today. How to follow you? Like, what are you doing? Where are they up to? What would you like them to go?
So
if they see what you're doing.
If you want to follow me at KAYJAY Consulting, KAYJAY CONSULTING on Instagram, or you can go to our website, which is kjconsulting.net, NET. Every Monday, we're doing Monday motivations. Tuesday, we do Tuesday lives, where I go live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We always have a topic of discussion where I hold class for 30 minutes, Wednesday workout tips, and Friday we do financial literacy. And it's a bunch of people out there that are being misguided. And our goal is to teach you how to think correctly about business and primarily about real estate investing. And so I think it's so important. My business partner, Jody, who's a white guy, what I stress is that, look, you can find talent in various genders, races, sex. Just be open. That's another thing I learned about Wall Street, is that you have to be open to working with people with diverse backgrounds and also different viewpoints if you want to grow, and also break out this mentality that you have to do everything by yourself. It's okay, like Jay-Z said, for you not to own 100% of a business. It's okay, because you'd rather own 10% of $1 billion business than own 100% of $100 business.
I love it. I love it. So guys, we're going to put that in the show notes. You got anything I didn't ask that you want to share before we let you go?
No, I think that you asked a lot of great questions, and I think that that people can benefit from just tweaking the way they think about things. Just slow down. You don't have to run anybody else's race. Run your own race. And no matter, as sometimes it's getting hard out here, no matter what the world throw at you, keep coming out the corner swinging. And before you know it, you'll be a lot farther than you could ever imagine.
There you go. Boom. So I'm going to leave it at that, folks. You know, you got to think, right? You got to rethink your thinking, and constantly. And because your number one asset, let me end with this. Your number one asset is you, right? And you got to invest in your mindset, in your skill set, and in your network, right? And if you will focus on that, and having I was reading a book, what's his name? John Maxwell. You got to have a personal growth plan, so that, because you ain't going to make 100 or 200,000 if you're not worth it, if you're not, don't have the leadership skills, if you don't have the sales skills, or the team. The three most important skills in business, I got this from Myron Golden, are sales, marketing, and team building. Those are the things that move the needle. And so go out there, follow KR. He's got some really good stuff. I'm going to put you on my list so I can pop up on these lives and so I had the fortune to spend a day sitting next to him. So that was awesome. That was fun. So I appreciate that so much. Like I said, I just want to be the man next to the man. I ain't got to be the man.
No, all I do is try to be authentic and speak my mind and just try to have an impact. So
yeah, yes, sir. Well, you do. And so I appreciate you. So guys, go out there, follow KR, and listen, the main thing, one of the things I'm going to leave y'all is that you can be mean and lean. So you can't build your financial game plan with Instagram sound bites. You know what I mean? You've got to slow down. You got to do some research. You've got to build, I call it, KR, your power team, right? And then you got to have a goal of greatness. Like, what do you want? Because see, the financial plan, which comes from Curtis, by the way, but the financial plan precedes the business or the investment plan, because what is it that you want and why? Okay, I'll ask people that, and that's what do you want? They'll tell me what they don't want, but they can't tell you what they want, which means you need to think a little bit, because all of the investments are vehicles to get you somewhere, right? And so where is that? What does it look like? What do you want your family? Where do you want to live? Where do you want your kids to go to school at? And I think you got to think about that first, personally. And
agree.
So anyway, I want to start off another thread, because we could go. So I appreciate you, brother. And guys, go out there, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we will talk to you soon.